What's up, guys? I want to do one today episode on aging. And I think you might find this episode way more interesting than you think, whatever age you are, if you're young or old. And we were just talking about aging and the different concepts. I want to say first, why am I making this episode? Episodes on aging, if you ever watch anything on aging, at least in my experience, they're all preachy. It's old guys telling young guys what to do, basically, that type of thing. And I just think that's fucked. I think that's stupid and it's a lie. Because usually these old guys, if I know these old guys, they're lying. They wouldn't do what they say. And they're just using it as an opportunity to basically do what everybody, kind of the dark side of every people, is tell other people what to do. You know, be the one that knows everything. Like they're basically trying to be that kind of wise man. This is not at all the concept that we're going to talk about today. And I think you'll find this a very refreshing, interesting view and valuable view for you of this very, very complex topic, right? Because there's so many aspects of it. Like there's the aspect of fear. Like I was just talking to somebody, not going to say names, but you know, he's in his early 30s and he was very scared of aging. Like definitely, like it's something that's on his mind a lot. And I was really surprised because I don't think about aging at all, right? And I was like, but I thought back when I was in my early 30s, I did think about aging. You know, to me, I was like, that's ridiculous. Just stay healthy and don't even worry about it, you know. But let's see. So let me just throw out some ideas of what I think is the important kind of aspects of it. Because there's one thing as you aging, right, as a person, right? And there's another aspect of what you could be doing at different ages. And there's another aspect of there was a great book called When Ideas Have Sex, right? And I've always thought this is one of the core values for me, is I don't want to just talk about something. I always want to have something together and then make something new. I don't want to repeat, right? But with aging, how it relates to aging is, I think it's very important for older guys to have younger friends. And then I think it's very, very important for younger guys to have older friends. And I've done both. So I can actually talk from both perspectives. When I was younger, I always had older friends. I always hung out with older guys. Like even when I was like very young, I dated older girls. Like when I was getting laid like very young, like 12, 13, I was hanging out with girls like always 16, 17. You know, I always like, that doesn't sound like a lot, but at that age, it's huge, right? So this aging is not just related to friends, it's also related to dating. And I think also it relates to technology a lot too, because I'll just kind of throw in ideas as they come, right? But one of the most refreshing things that ever happened to me was I was in my, let's see, how old was I? I was 30 and I started dating this girl who was just turned 18 and she was very young and I was like 31 or something, but I was a very young 31. Anyway, this girl had just finished school and I met her through a friend and she totally dug on me. And in fact, we're still good friends today, actually. But she was from a totally different generation than me at the time. And she taught me so many things. Like she was one of the early people with cell phones. You know, we're talking back in the 90s, right? So probably, let's say, I don't know what year it was. I'm going to guess about 96, maybe about 1996, something like that. Maybe even 95, might have even been earlier, like 94. I'd have to look at her fucking birth date to know, but because she was 18 at the time. But anyway, when I hung out with her, she was like, it was in the dumb, remember the flip phones, you know? Yeah, there's the flip phones. And in Japan, we had very advanced flip phones back then. Yeah, it must have been 96. And she had this 95 or 96. And she had, because I didn't get my phone until 95, I think. My first, what I considered a smartphone back then. But she was like always glued to it. And she was always using it and everything. And the interesting thing about her was I was older, right? And she didn't really have a father figure. So I think she saw me as a father figure in some ways. So she was not interested in anything in her life at all. She had no interest in anything, basically, except me and basically like her phone. So she would sit by herself and just be on her phone all the time and then put on makeup. Basically, that's the kind of girl. She would spend 3 hours putting on makeup, right? And so I was looking at her all the time, and she was very depressed because she didn't know what she was going to do. And she was going to drop out of school. She didn't know what she was going to do. And she was kind of like lost. She was totally lost, right? She was from a bad family. She didn't have any good role models. She was kind of in an area where in Japan where there was kind of losers. Like it wasn't Tokyo, right? And I have to drive to her house, right? So anyway, so she did is she was like her friends were basically like, I don't know, they were all going down bad roads, all of them. A lot of her friends ended up working in blowjob bars and like being alcoholics, and like it was kind of a dark side of Japan kind of area. And but she was into her cell phone, and she didn't know what she wanted to do, and she like basically didn't even want to get a job, living with her mother. And I said to her one day, I said we walked by a cell phone store, and there was a sign. It said, help wanted or something. And I said, hey, why don't you go in there and check it out? I said, you're on your cell phone all the time. You love cell phones, and this is before. This is so long ago, right? Nobody even thought about it. Cell phones were brand new, right? And she goes, why? I don't have any experience or anything. I said, look, you really know cell phones. Like, just go in there and just show them what you can do with your phone. Because this girl was like a kind of a genius with phones. And so she walked in there, boom, they gave her a job, right? And it just turned out that the place she walked into, just by pure chance, the branch that she walked into was owned by a Toyota secretly. And so Toyota Motor Corp, right, which was probably the best company to work for in Japan in some ways, very secure. So she got the job as a temporary, and then she became the number one salesman in the whole company. It was a huge company in Japan. She sold more phones than any other girl at any other shop in Japan. And then they offered her a full-time job, which meant permanent employment at Toyota, essentially, which was, at the time, was like an unbelievable achievement for a girl who really had nothing going on, right? Like, and then that was only for, that permanent employment thing was dying at the time. So like even guys who went to Todai, the best university in Japan, they couldn't get that anymore. It was like losing, everybody was like bummed out. No more permanent employment. She got it, right? Just from selling phones. And it was like so cool. And I was so glad that my experience as an older guy and also as a recruiter, I could see her skills. And I could see how to present them. And I could see that the company needed them because those cell phone companies at the time, the people that worked there, they didn't even know how to use their phones. The people that worked at cell phone companies in 95 didn't even have cell phones. Like they just sold them like you would sell a rice cooker. Like they say, oh, here's a purple one, here's a green one, here's a big one, here's a small one, this one's expensive, this one's cheap. They didn't know anything about phones. And I thought, man, this girl could really fucking explain shit to people. And she could type. This girl could type like 100 words a minute on a Japanese flip phone with one thumb. And she was just like, So I was like, this girl is perfect, right? So anyway, it totally turned out true. And I was always proud of that because I always want, with my friends and with my girlfriends too, I always want to make their life better after I've been with them in some way. And I was very glad I was able to do that with her because that totally changed her life because she became a very confident person after that. She like things went well for her. And it didn't go to her head too. She actually handled it very well too. And since then, things have gone well. So anyway, that was kind of when we talk about aging, sometimes aging can allow you to have insights where you can drop like a bomb on somebody. You can really change someone's life by having an insight into who they are and what they do and what other people don't do. And I think that's one of the real benefits of different age groups because I benefited from her immensely because I wasn't really interested in phones. Like phones, nobody knew then that phones were going to become big. There was no iPhone. There was no concept that, our concept basically, here was our concept at the time, cell phones, was you had a phone in your house and you had a wireless phone. And it usually went about, depends on the brand, but some of them you could walk down the street, like say 10 meters, it would still work. If there was a window, if there's a view. And so we saw cell phones as basically just having a bigger antenna and like walking farther outside our house. That's kind of like the view of cell phones at the time. Like there was no idea that you were ever going to be able to do anything with them, or they were going to become a big deal, or they were just phones, right? They were just fucking phones. And it's just like, you can have this phone and so anyway, so I didn't see anything about phones, but with her, just being with her, I helped her, but she helped me immensely because she was the one who opened my eyes to, because I was 31, right? I don't know about you guys that are 31, but you start to feel kind of out of it at 31, I think, because you realize you're not 18 anymore. You're no longer in, like when you finish school or when you finish college at 22 or whatever, you are in the vortex. A lot of guys don't realize this. You're the once in a lifetime. You're the young kid who knows the new shit. And it's going to be valuable. And the old guys, they give you props, right? They hire you because you are right in that vortex. Once you get up to 31, you're no longer that kid. You don't know what's going on. Like you really don't know fashion as well as you think. You don't really know like technology as well as you think. You're pretty far out of it at 31. And I think that's a big shock for people is you start to realize like, fuck. And then if you think about it, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. You're only going to get further out of it, right? And so I think that the concept of aging and being relevant and building your skills is a very important thing to think about from the very beginning, because this girl changed my life because she was let's just call it what it was. She was a straight up genius with phones. And being around a straight up genius with phones meant a lot more than learning how to use a phone, because she used it in amazing ways. You know what I mean? That I couldn't even like comprehend, And that as an older guy, because I was 30, let's say 31, I was an older guy. I was being exposed to not just youth, but kind of a wormhole into a whole new reinvention of society, essentially. Because that's what happened with mobile and technology, right? Like I was just lucky enough to be on that carpet ride where I got sucked into it early and I understood it, right? And then she even like pushed me along the way, because even when we started to later on in our relationship, so the iPhone came out, right? The iPhone 3. And again, I started to lose interest in cell phones because now I knew everything about flip phones, right? And then I said, she said, I got this new. She was one of these people that she just understood phones. Like when she got that iPhone, like everybody said it's a piece of crap because it wasn't made as well as the Japanese phones. The Japanese phones, let's put it this way, the Japanese phones were so well made at the time that I got an argument with her one time on the freeway, and she threw my phone out of the window because some other girl called. Okay, on a Japanese, on the Shuto Expressway. If you ever played the video games, it's got these concrete walls and everything. And like she threw it out of the car and it bounced off the concrete walls and cars ran over and everything. And like I stopped the car in the middle of the freeway and walked backwards on the freeway. And people were honking, almost hitting me. I got my phone and I came back in the car. I drove away because I didn't want to lose my phone. And it turns out that the phone still worked. I was able to use that phone for like maybe another 6 months, totally fine, right? That's how tough those phones were. And at the time, like the Apple phone, you just drop it, it breaks, right?
What was it, like a flip phone, like a Nokia or?
It was no Japanese. They were all Japanese. It was what was it? It was I think it was a Toshiba or something. Yeah, it was a Hitachi or Toshiba or something like that. Some weird company that doesn't even make phones anymore. That was like some weird one. But it was like, that's why people didn't think, because Japan made everything then. Nobody even wanted anything made in America. And the iPhone was made in America at the end of the day. It was an American phone. And it was like not waterproof. It didn't have a camera. It didn't do anything. Like the Japanese phones did everything back then. They had everything. Like I could do video in the mid 90s on my phone. I could send email. There was an email client on the iMode, on the iMode system. And then there was another similar iMode type of thing on KDDI and stuff. So, and there was another very interesting innovation, if you're interested in technology, that came through Japan and then died. But yeah.
So, like, what I would ask you is, would you say that, because we have like this mentorship, kind of like a mentoring
Yeah.
older,
Yeah.
and then you have like your young learning, just getting stuff.
Yes.
Would you say that like each party has their own blind spots and there's like advantages or disadvantages to either one, but working together, there's some kind of
Magic.
I mean, yeah, you're explaining a dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And there's like a benefit for both parties, but like, is what I'm saying correct? Like,
Absolutely. You're spot on. That's exactly what it is. Miracles can happen when you take two smart people of different ages who interact that are, both out for each other's best interest. Like miracles can happen. Like, this girl, I got to say, like, if I wouldn't have pointed her to that area, her future was dark. I mean, there's no question about it. It was dark. She was from a bad area. I'm not kidding about that. She was from a bad family. I don't even want to tell you, like, I don't want to tell you what happened, but it was like about as dark as it gets. So there was not, I put her into a wormhole that changed her life way more than she changed mine, right? Because I came from trailer park. So I knew how to go from trailer park to investment banking. I knew how to make that transition, over time. And I kind of set her on that same, I realized you just have to, once you realize that it's possible to go from anywhere to anywhere. And you see other people actually have done it. It changes your mindset because you start to think you're from a certain place and you can only go up to a certain level. You might see some famous person who went from like a farmer to the president or something, peanut farmer to president, Jimmy Carter. But it's not the same as when it's very real to you as a person, that you realize you can go to the top. Now, whether you want to go to the top, I'm not saying it's a good thing or bad thing, but you can reach other levels, but it takes somebody the odds are very against you, right? It's not like it's easy, right?
So like when you're sourcing or looking for a mentor, you kind of want somebody who's similar to your situation and be around that person, or from up close, find that person that's got a similar story or what you want your story to be, and just be around that person.
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing. Here's the weird piece of advice that I say to you, and this is the thing that I always do in my whole life is, I think, God, this is like a deep thing. Most things in life, to me, like most advice, what do they call them? Consultants, essentially, are basically total bullshit. The only way you really learn from somebody is by living with them. Like, it's got to be pretty close to that if you really want to know what the fuck they know and to really integrate it, Like, on the tour, when I go and stay in people's house, you see how they cook. You see how they live. You see how they wake up. You see the lies they tell themselves. You see how they drink. You see how they are when they're working. You see their practical life, the way they drive and what they, how they deal with frustrations. And you see all these things. And I think life has to be very immersive. You have to be immersive. If you want to learn anything from anybody, the smartest thing to do is invite them to your house. Like it is, to live with them. Now, if they don't have anything to offer and then they come and it's miserable, then that was the wrong person. There's no question about it. You know what I mean? But I have learned, I want to be, when I'm building something. Okay, so for example, when I built my real estate company in China, me and my girlfriend, she was basically, we were working all the time and calling each other all the time. And I just said to her, I didn't tell her, but she knew I had a lot of other girlfriends. But basically, I was already planning on getting rid of them because I said, look, the only way, I really wanted the business to succeed because China was going up. I really felt like it was the time for me to build something new. I was 40. It was another key turning point for me. My aging, I was like feeling kind of out of it. I was like, to give you my mindset at the time, I was in my 30s. Okay, imagine me in my 20s Teens growing up, whatever, hometown stuff, different towns. 20s was traveling the world, girls, opening up to the world, new cultures, new foods. 30s was all business. I started, when I was 30, I said, I'm fucking 30, man, I'm old. That's what I was thinking at the time. I was like, I gotta get serious about something. So that was when I quit teaching English and fucking around. I got into headhunting. And headhunting was very good for me because I was really good at it. And that gave me a huge boost because I didn't know I would be, I didn't know I'd be good at anything. I wasn't raised to think I had any talent at all in anything, really. Like I didn't have any premonition I was going to be good at anything. And nobody told me, even though whenever I spoke at places, it was amazing. People would say, you should be this, you're a leader, and I was just but I never saw, I didn't know what a leader was. I didn't take it that serious. I was completely lost. I felt just lucky to have food, and be surviving. That was my mindset when I was younger. And so then when I got into headhunting and all that, and investment banking, real estate that decade, and I started the toy company and everything, all of a sudden I had total confidence. At the same time as I was very chastised by losing a lot of money too in that decade. I saved a bunch of money and I lost it all in one night trading on stocks in the internet bubble. I lost basically my whole life savings in an hour and a half. I put it on one or two companies basically, and after I bought it, went from $80 down to nothing, and then it bounced back up. It was in the crazy internet bubble, and I put a sell order at $81, and it sold at the very bottom because the selling volume was so serious, and I was a retail investor. I was one of the early GameStop angry guys, because I knew that it was fucked because I put a sell order on $81, and it didn't sell until it was $30. I got fucked. I got reamed. I could have sued them for sure looking back. If I knew anything about the law, I would have sued that company because I put a sell order at 81 and it sold at 30. I mean, that's in an hour later. That's fucked. There was some serious manipulation going on at the time. And I just didn't, I lost everything. One day I had $100,000. The next day I had nothing because I lost it in two trades. I got so depressed. And I stopped investing because I just really took the wind out of all my sails of saving money and investing, right? So I can talk about that and aging and wisdom from that because I learned a lot from that. At the time, what I learned was, because I used to save money, I was very good at saving money. Always when I was a kid, I was always a saver, always. Even when I was in high school, I had $3,000, which was a lot of money back then, from mowing lawns and working at the LA Times and everything. And So then I from that I learned, I said, okay, saving money is good, investing is good, but you never know the future, so you better fucking make a lot of money. That was what I learned at the time. I said, you better get better at making money because you can't always, saving isn't the perfect way to go because sometimes you can lose everything. And then if you're not good at making money, then you're not going to be able to refresh that money. So I went into a new mindset. I said, I want to learn to make a lot of money. I want to sell buildings with a $3 million commission, right? And I got into investment banking. And I think both are true, but I learned a lot from that. So anyway, when I got out of my 30s and I was now 40 and I could see again, I felt old again because even though I was a quote unquote Japan expert at the time, it was, I don't know, a Japan expert is, at the time, Japan was still the place to be. It was still a good place to be. And it was a Japan expert was a respected type of person, somebody who really knew Japan, could start a company, raise investment, could do real business in Japan. That was a valuable thing. But Japan was kind of going down already. I could sense that. And China was rising. And I started to feel one of these 21-year-old programmers who studied the wrong language. You study Cobalt or whatever, and then the new C++ or whatever comes up, and then you you have to you're fucked. You have to totally some people can make the transition, others can't, right? When you study the wrong technology, and you make the wrong friends, you get the wrong jobs, And then what happens is if you're good at a technology that's dying, everybody wants to hire you because they need somebody for this shitty technology. So you can really fool yourself for a long time, just long enough to totally ruin your life, right? Because you get hired by IBM in some backwater place doing this old technology until it's totally dead. And now you're 35 and you're fucked, right? Or you can like bite the bullet, realize you wasted 5 years of fucking valuable time and learn whatever that new technology is to program AI or whatever, right? So anyway, I had done that with Japan because I never thought Japan could go down or there would be any other place for me to be. And all of a sudden, China was the new C++ to me. And I was like, man, I want to be a China guy. Like I want to be China business is much more exciting. There's factories, there's manufacturing, it's like different than Japan. It's bigger, right? 10 times more people, right? And I thought, I got to go there. It's more shit going on. Also, the dynamics were very different. Like multinationals were going to China and they were hiring people as the head of the country and they were making deals and there was stuff that never happened in Japan. Because in Japan, it was always Japanese guys doing it. You could never really have that much control in Japan because there were so many sophisticated Japanese guys everywhere. And they could just do it. They would just hire them. Whereas in China, China was coming from the Cultural Revolution, and there was really nobody who was ready, who was at the level to do the things that the multinationals needed. They hire guys, and they would just do these outrageous things, like crazy things, like just the most crazy stories from China at the time. You couldn't even believe how crazy. If you want to hear one story of just how crazy it was. I think it was Siemens or one of the big German companies. They hired a guy to manufacture for them as an OEM, and so basically, they were trying to find an OEM, right? So they found a guy, and he said, I manufacture what you need, like I can do it in my factory, and so they said, okay, we'll fly over, we'll see you, and so then he. He met him at the factory. They came in, the big signs, on the wall of the company. And then the German guys are like, fantastic. Showed him the quality. We accept this. They all went to like a big dinner. And of course, the Germans paid for everything, And they took him around. He said, look, we got to look at new factory sites. And the Germans were like, whatever you want to do, let's go do it. And they took him out, translators and money splashed all around. Now, from the German perspective, this was just a normal business trip, right? But from the guy's perspective, who was a scammer, his perspective, this was like free food and money and dumb people, right? So anyway, they spent a bunch of money on him. And the real thing that got the German guys, it really just dug them in, was when they were having dinner, he said, I've never seen a 500 euro note, like just so much money to a Chinese guy. I've never seen one. And then the president of the German guy's like, I got one right here, which was like $750 at the time. And he said, can I keep it? And the German guy's like, it's kind of uncomfortable. You're at dinner and this is your China guy. He's like, sure. He said, well, I'm gonna frame it in the factory, And he's like, okay, sure, So he gave him the 500 euro note. So then anyway, they left back to Germany and he stopped answering emails, And so anyway, then they were like freaking out, So they flew back. They had already given him a bunch of money to get started and everything. And they flew back to the factory and it had a different name on it. And they're like, what's going on here? And then they said, oh, that guy, he paid us to switch the sign that day of the factory. Like basically, he put other signs on top of our signs that day. And they're like, they agreed to it. And then basically, it wasn't even his factory. He didn't know anything about anything. He was just a total scammer. Like that was the type of person multinationals were giving like $1 million to, Like the scams were unbelievable back then in China. Like they were like unreal. There was scams that were just like, I had a friend who was one of the first employees at Alibaba, and Alibaba was the head of scams because Alibaba was the first time you could buy from China directly. Because the buyers, like the Walmart buyers and the Costco buyers and the people that would go buy in China, they were fucking hardened. They were fucking salty motherfuckers because they knew all this stuff. They knew the scams in China were just unbelievable at the time. and they would be able to see through it. They were like hardcore. I could tell you some funny stories of those guys, but they knew how to see through shit, right? And they hired investigators and they did all kinds of stuff. And so Alibaba was the first time that you had dumb owners of hardware stores just believing everything that they were being told. And they were just sending like $1 million in. They would order like a sample. They would send them perfect samples. So they'd send them $1 million for a big order. And then they would send them like a bunch of rotten fruit or something, and like in like train cars. They're like, where's our electronics? And they like wouldn't answer emails anymore. And they closed down their Alibaba shop. Yeah. Like that, this happened all the time. It was a bloodbath. It might have been the beginning of Alibaba. Might have been, I think, personally, because my friend worked there. He did the back end. He built the back end, my friend. And he told me the scams, they're not public. I think it might have been the biggest scams of small business by an order of magnitude in history. Like there was never this many people ruined and this much money stolen. It was unfucking believable because every Argentinian, supermarket chain, every German aerospace manufacturer, like you just imagine that all these companies trying to buy from China, and now they're dealing directly with these guys, and they didn't know who they're dealing with. And like I said, the scams were just unbelievable at the time. And so why did they want to hire people like me? Because they could trust me. Because I would just tell them, okay, here's what I can do, here's what I can't do, here's what I know. Like the value of trust in China at the time was unbelievable. Companies would pay insane money just that they could trust what you're saying. Just that they could believe you, that's all. It sounds so simple, but I built my business on the fact that I will tell you the truth. And I did. And that was that was the smartest decision I ever made, because I was made a company, and I was studying marketing, and they said you got to do this, you got to do that. But I realized that China was in a totally different space, and I built my business on trust. And like I'll give you an example. So for example, we were selling a house once, and this guy came in. He was looking at the house, and he said, wow, this is a beautiful place, because it was a beautiful place. It was a historic building. It was unbelievable. At the time, foreigners could buy historic buildings. And it was French. It was just beautiful. And he goes, this is unbelievable. I said, well, yeah, it was under 3 feet of water last week. And he goes, what? And I said, yeah. I said, look out there, that drain. Some moron upstairs threw a piece of plywood. It blocked that drain. And then it rained so much that the black mud just came in the house and ruined everything, and like destroyed all the electronics and the house and everything. We just redid it, the whole house. I said, but I think I had built like this basically drain thing, the bump, so that nothing could block the drain again. It was a very simple solution, but it worked. And he's like, he looked at me, he goes, why are you telling me this? And I said, this is my business is telling you the good and the bad, the truth. I will always tell you the truth. And he looked at me, he could not believe it. And I thought he was not going to buy it. And my partner, who's Chinese, she's like, that is the stupidest thing you ever said. But I knew it wasn't, even though it was a very bad thing to say. But I knew that no one else did that. No one else, because this was much more than just telling the truth. This was telling things that were not legally responsible. I didn't have to do it. Like there was nothing legal that I had to say that. I just made a decision to tell the absolute truth to every customer. And I lost a lot of dumb customers. Like a lot of dumb customers would look at me like, well, this place sucks then. And they would leave. They didn't realize that I didn't suck. Because the place sucked, yeah. And the place they were going to buy next sucked too. But they didn't have anybody. It was like you're in space and there's nothing to grab onto, right? With my business, at least you could grab onto something. In China, there were so many scams and there's so many misrepresentations that I made this clear decision that we were going to build a business on trust. And what happened was that guy with that one property, turns out he was the perfect guy to do this with, because he was connected, that guy. And we had unbelievable business come in after that. And I mean like very serious guys came in. People that owned like 60 properties. And they basically came in and I would be giving them my sales pitch. And he's like, look, hold the sales pitch. My friend told me about you. Just look, I'm so tired of scams. Like I've been here for 10 years. I've been beaten up so many times. He goes, I don't even want to hear what you have to deal with. Like, he goes, I trust you. Just get it done somehow. And he goes, trust me. I know it's going to be hard, so I don't expect it to be easy. So you don't have to like sugarcoat anything or tell me you did it right the first time. Like, just get it done. You just get it done, and here you go. Here's the keys. Tell me when you need money. We'll get it in your account, And then he's like, I don't want to think about this. And that's what I did. I would just get these, and people like that, they had like multiple properties. And then other presidents of companies would come in, and they would just be laydowns. If you've ever done sales, a laydown is like unbelievable. Like a laydown is when the guy just comes in and says, okay, I want a house. Here's the price. Let me know. Basically like, as soon as you find it, I'll come over. I'll pay cash. It'll be done. And then you find a place. You show him 3 places. He's like, that's it. That's the place. Here's the money. Sign. Done. That's a laydown, right? And all of a sudden I started getting laydown sales, which nobody gets laydown sales in real estate. But because of the amount of scams and because they knew that they could trust me, then not just what I was saying, but they could trust my judgment on Chinese real estate, because I knew Chinese real estate too. So telling the truth isn't about telling the truth. Young guys, you think telling the truth is telling the truth. It's not. Telling the truth has a lot more to do with knowing the truth than telling the truth. If you don't know the fucking truth, you can tell people things that are wrong, and that's not the truth. And that sucks, basically. Someone can tell you the best surgery is this, because that's what they think at the time, then it turns out to be not the best surgery. That's not the truth. The truth is somebody who's wise enough, knows the area well enough to know what the fuck's going on and to tell you. That's the combination I offered, right? So anyway, that was my transition at 40, was from a guy who was lost at 40 in China. I had had a little bit of a issue with somebody that I was close to, and it was very emotionally draining for me and difficult at the time. It wasn't a girlfriend, another relationship, and very difficult. And I was really under a lot of stress. And I was 40 years old. I was in Japan. I felt old. I felt like my future was to be a Japan expert. And then I just got enough of a kick in the ass to go to China, which I always wanted to go to China. I was always interested in China. Ever since 5th grade, I was interested in China. So I'm like, I'm going to turn my back on everything I know, all my girlfriends and friends, my businesses, everything that's easy in my life, my knowledge of Japanese language, my knowledge of Tokyo, my network of friends. I'm going to throw all that in the garbage because I knew I had to. I couldn't half-ass this one. I couldn't live in China and Japan. That doesn't work. I had to make a commitment, and I made a commitment. And that was the best thing I ever did at 40 years old. Same thing I did many times in my life. I made hardcore decisions at 30 to quit boning all the chicks. Basically at 30, I said, fuck this. I said, I've boned enough chicks. I've done that. I've done enough pickup. I've done enough. I've proved everything to myself. And as a man, I had a lot of things I needed to prove to myself. Maybe other guys don't. But for me, I need to know I can overcome my internal blocks and fear. And I knew, as a man, I knew I needed to go into that realm and get confidence in that realm. But then when I was 30, I was like, now I'm an English teacher, which is basically what I was doing at 30. And I realized like I'm just going to be another loser English teacher. And I'm not saying you're a loser if you're an English teacher, but for me, I got talent. I got more to offer. There's more gas in the tank. So whatever I reach a level of something, it's stupid for me to stay there. Like I take what I have and I move to the next. Yeah, I take that knowledge and I leverage it into looking for that next wormhole. Because I don't want to just work my way up. I want to do like I did with that girl, put her on a fucking magic carpet into a whole new life, right? I always want to try to find that new magic carpet that takes me into where I can take my wisdom with me in my backpack, right? Into that wormhole, and then I come out and then use that in this new realm that has growth to it. So it's like aging with kind of like reinvention, I guess I'm talking about. So those were also countries too. But anyway, going to China to 40 was the best decision I ever made because my confidence just went through the roof because I was able to, this is it. Here's what it is. Second chances. Okay. This is the fucking big thing with aging is I was able to get a second chance in life. And that is a very rare and valuable thing. Because most people, when I say most people are zombies, it's because they never do this. They never make this strategic move that catapults them into a new area, into a new mindset, into a new body of knowledge, into a new group of friends, and into a new culture, into a new future, into a new confidence. They don't do that. So that's why they die. I think that being alive, you need to be able to make these hardcore decisions, like leaving Japan. That was a very difficult decision. Very difficult. I had everything perfect. Kind of like you have here. I was very comfortable. Like I was totally comfortable. I had the perfect, by then I had been in Japan for like 15 years. I had figured everything out. I had the perfect apartment. It was like, it really was. It was like, it was a panty dropper. I call those apartments panty droppers because you could basically tell the girl at the door, if you want to come in, you got to take your clothes off. Like that's how good the apartment was. That's how much people wanted to be there. And girls would like laugh and I'd say, this is, okay, don't take these things too seriously, but panty droppers, you basically fuck the girl in the doorway. She's like ready. She's like wet, sopping wet. She wants to come into your panty dropper apartment, right? That's like one of the key things like to always think about with an apartment. If you're in that stage of boning chicks is like, not that you want to have a panty dropper. It's not that you need that because I think living in a cardboard box is a better challenge for you as a man. But knowing about panty droppers is important too. Like knowing that there's different ways to kind of skin a cat. There's different ways to do different things, right? And I learned that as good as I am at like doing it the hard way, it is pretty funny the other way. And that was a panty dropper. Like every girl she'd see this apartment is perfect. And then also it was perfect for me. It was right near the station. It was like, it was good for business. Like everybody respected me. It was the address. Like my address was gold. Like you see that address, you're like, that guy's got his shit together. And I was a president of a company too. So it was like president and my address was all on my business card. And so leaving all that to be a student and be a bumbling around Shanghai without knowing anybody. And let's face it, your money's going to run out sometime. I had money, but it's going to run out. I had no source of income in China and I had to pay money. I had to go to school. I had to get an apartment. I had to fucking do stuff, right? I joined groups. But here's the thing. I did everything, second chances. I did everything that I fucked up in Japan. Because when I went to Japan, I didn't have a confidence. I didn't know I could learn a language. I didn't know I was good at languages. I thought back then there was this meme going around that Americans are not good at languages. I believed that at the time. And it was like I was trying to learn Chinese or Japanese with my friends, my girlfriends, just trying to talk with them. And then one day I was in a room with a professional translator and I could speak way better than her. And it dawned on me that I could speak Japanese. Like all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I was like, I speak better than this. I was thinking to myself, I speak like not just better, but way better than this professional translator. And she was super proud of herself. And I realized coming from where I came from, like very low self-esteem, that was like a huge awakening for me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm good at languages. And then all of a sudden I would start accepting compliments because until then people would say it, but it never went past my thick skull at all. I was like, yeah, whatever. They don't, fuck that. That's stupid. I don't want to believe that. That's not me. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm really good at languages, right? So when I went to China, I knew I was good at languages. I'm like, I'm going to study Chinese super hard because I'm a genius with languages. Like I'm going to get very good at it. So it's worth the investment for me. And so that's why I was so focused because of what I had learned. And my second chance was using something that just came to me by chance, really, So then I also learned something else that I reinvented myself. I was always saw myself as a scrapper, whether it's in any aspect of my life. And then I saw people in Japan who had gone to the right school, they had gone to Ivy League schools, they were from the right family, and they did things like join business associations. And I just knew that was way over my head. I could not even imagine paying for an association. Like, what do you get? You get nothing. Like, you don't get anything. You just go to these posh places and talk about shit. That was never on my radar, like a penny dropper apartments. I didn't know there was another world where there was an advantage to doing that. I just thought, well, not only that, I never thought I could go. They'll never let me in. That was my mindset, And then all of a sudden when I got to Shanghai, I said, I want to do all the things that I saw the people in Tokyo do that I could never imagine doing when I was 25. Now I'm 40, right? 15 years later. And I said, I can join a business association. So I joined American Chamber of Commerce. I went to the meetings. I was on time. I provided value. And the next thing I know, they voted me in as leading a committee. So I'm leading a committee, and I'm going to these meetings. I'm organizing meetings. I paid like $500 a year to join. And now I'm meeting all these business people, and they're introducing me to all these people. And it was like very, 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 very valuable for me at the time because I was ready for it. And that reinvention was based on failure in the past. So that's why second chances are so important, is because you're not a failure because you fail. It's just that you did fail and you're honest with yourself, right? But you're not a failure. If you had that second chance again, you would do it, right? You would definitely do it, right? That when you get these second chances, aging, you actually can do it. You don't have to not do it again and say, well, I didn't do it again. You can say, oh, I'm going to now be, even though I don't feel worthy, even though I don't feel like I can do it, even though it's confusing to me, even though I'm not from a good family, I'm not from a good school, even though I didn't do everything right, even though I'm a complete fraud, in your own mind, right? I'm going to walk into the American Chamber of Commerce and I'm going to ask serious questions. And I'm going to see what's available in this country. And I'm going to start to meet people. And American Chamber of Commerce was mostly Chinese, but it was all serious Chinese. It wasn't those scammers I'm talking about. It was the very, very smart, very, very clever. Like these were they were the ones who went to Harvard. They were the ones who left China, went to Harvard, came back, had MBAs, and they knew what was up. They knew Western culture. They knew Chinese culture. And they were very pleasant and intelligent. And, of course, they knew everything, including how to order noodles. Like everything I needed to know, how to be cool, how to talk slang, how to do a business deal, how to raise money, who to talk to in the bank, what to say, what paperwork, who would be a good assistant, where to live, how to get, they just knew everything. And it was just easy for them. They'd say, oh, you want to learn? Let's just talk to that guy. Oh, I'll introduce you to my college friend, yeah. And then all of a sudden, I'm just like in this serious bank. I'm like, fuck, man. My God, like, how is this? Like, I had to pinch myself sometimes when I got to China. But it was because of this thing. It looks like got some serious questions coming.
So, like, it seems that there's, like, transitions, right? From going to, like, being the learner to being the mentor. And the only way to actually become the mentor is to go through these transitions and like the second chances that you're explaining. And like, you gotta approach them. If you avoid these second chances or if you stay in the same place, you'll never get to the mentorship place. And it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of being around others who made these transitions as well.
Yeah.
Like you got to be around them a lot, because there's like the short game and the long game. Like the short game is like, watching a video or something on YouTube where they have like some piece of advice. But the long game is when you're around somebody so long that they just as they're going, especially if they're a mentor, they drop good shit on you. And then when you're also the mentor and you spend a lot of time with someone who's young, like you have like the experience and the knowledge of having gone through so many transitions to like cherry pick the good stuff off the young people while you also offer something to them. And I think that mutual offerings is what allows the time and togetherness to keep going,
Right.
And like if they don't offer that, if there's no like, a mutual whatever, it's, like there's nothing of value, and you kind of see that as the mentor.
It's even deeper than that. It's even deeper.
I
That
get
is
that.
that is. What's interesting is you. Okay, that's from the mentor to a younger guy. It's basically the concept you were talking about.
Yeah.
It is very, very fucking key that the older guy finds young people to mentor him in areas. It is very fucking key. Just like that girl, the 18-year-old girl who is a cell phone person. Just watching her type on her phone was fascinating to me. And the way she used it wasn't just the phone. It was the fluidity that she used the phone. It was the I was thinking in Chinese there for a second. It was the flow. She used the phone. She used technology in the 90s as part of virtual reality, as if somebody would do, like a very, very clever person now would do. And so I saw that it wasn't just the technology that I saw. By being with her a lot, I was able to see the connection between the technology and life, the weaving of those two together, and how that was really what it was about. I could see it from being with her, right? And so the only way that you can keep growing, the goal is not to be a mentor. You're going to be mentor at a different time, but don't get too into it. Like, I'm not a mentor. You don't want to be stuck in mentorship, because if you're stuck in mentorship, you're kind of like that programmer that studied COBOL. There's a limited time you're going to have value. And your mentorship, the things you know are only going to be valuable for so long. You need to do what you said there, is you need to go into that new transition yourself. And you need to go into that new wormhole for yourself. Otherwise, it all falls apart. Each stage in your life. And I'll give you, so for me, the role of mentor can be the young person mentoring, as that girl mentored me with basically technology and life itself. And she opened my eyes to computers, really. And because I really, computers were not a big part of my life. I don't want to get into it too much but when I was a kid, like, basically there was only BASIC language. It was called BASIC. And people programmed in BASIC at the computer lab at school. There was no graphics or anything. And people like me, there was two types of people, right? There was like book people, and then there was like speaking people. And then there was computer people, and there's people who like to climb mountains and go in rivers and be with women and see sunsets. Like, there were two different, everybody was very clear in one or the other, right? You weren't just, the computer people were not, they just stared at their screen with their thick glasses. Like, that was what was going on with BASIC. They were like Steve Wozniak. They were a certain type of people. And I was like very clear I wasn't that type of person. So one of the biggest transitions for people my generation was, we decided we were not computer people. We laughed at computer people. Like, we did not see any value in computers. And anybody that doesn't agree with this, you're lying your ass off. This is exactly how it was. They were idiots in some dark room with no, like, you didn't even know what they're doing. And they didn't understand you. It was the reason why I know this is because I knew a genius programmer. I went to high school with a genius programmer back then. He was making $500 an hour when he was 16 years old programming. And he had dreadlocks and dressed like a hippie. And he would not change. Oh, and he didn't even wear shirts. He wore these vests, these Indian vests. So his chest was always out. So when he went to the corporate places, they would only have him go in the middle of the night to program. Because he would just tell them, otherwise I'm not going to work for you. Fuck off. I wear this vest. Southern California, it's warm, right? So he would wear the vest. And they're like, okay, but you got to come in at night. So, like, no one can see you, because he dressed like so weird for the 80s corporate culture, right? There was a serious corporation paying $500 an hour back then to program databases. So the thing is I had to make this transition that was incredibly difficult for me, because I was the guy who liked to touch, like to have a woman touch my skin or I touch her skin. I was into senses. I was into the ocean. I was into sports and excellence. I was into going to Mexico and having crazy adventurous trips. I was into experiences, and I was kind of the opposite of these guys. And was actually, you know what? This is actually a very interesting side note, because my friendship with that programmer was my first one where I ventured so deep off the beaten path for me. And for him too. He never had a friend like me. Like, we went so off the beaten path with each other. We were the weirdest odd couple in high school, because I didn't know, but I was popular. I never thought of myself as popular, but everybody I talked to now, they're like, "You're totally popular." I'm like, "I was." Mindset's different than reality, right? But anyway, I hung out with him, and I brought him around with me. He wore like Indian feathers in his hair and stuff, and people just thought he was weird, but he's hanging out with me. They're like, okay, whatever, that guy's here, whatever. He never sat at the popular tables, or he couldn't do that. It was against the law, But then when he'd come with me, he'd sit down there, and people just kind of accepted it, But the key thing was I learned so much from him, because all he did all day was program computers and play Dungeons and Dragons. That's all he did. Dungeons and Dragons, this kind of pre-computer game. And that's they use these cards and stuff. That's all he did. Dungeons and Dragons and fucking program. And like that opened my eyes. So you have to, I think maybe one thing that I'm not maybe stating that well is you need to be open to very different ways of thinking, very different people. I think, well, you don't have to, obviously, but I personally think there's no reason not to. And I think that's where the most value is unlocked, is when two people that are very different get together. Now, today, people are not as different as they were then. So it's harder to find this today. It's a little harder to find.
Yeah. There's more things, and people have more things in common because of the internet.
Now everybody kind of knows everything. More people know, but I still think there's a lot of benefit for me, like, for example, taking a camel safari on the border of Pakistan and being with a camel tender, and then, like that opened my eyes to a totally different, almost nomadic. And so my travels, I was able to find people and hang out with them. Because, here's what I did. In 1990, in the Philippines, when everybody else was, like, the only thing anybody did in the Philippines back then was go to bars and screw bar girls. That's all anybody did. But I was never interested in prostitutes. Like, I've never had interest, like, ever. Like, I've always thought of them as disgusting. But anyway, I never said it because I don't want to put them down. I mean, everybody has a right to a job and everything. But I just never had any sexual attraction to them. So anyway, here I am in the Philippines with fucking nobody could understand me. They'd be like, well, if you don't like prostitutes, then get a guy. I'm like, I'm not gay. Like, I don't like guys. Like, I just don't, the scene, I couldn't explain it. Like, I just never got off on it. I like clean girls. I like to be able to lick a pussy, Like, you can't lick a pussy of some dirty, infested fucking flea bag. It's you can't, you're going to get diseases and die, I like clean and pure and trust, So I'm always looking in different places than other people. And I guess I'm always on a different fucking path. And sometimes I can't explain it.
You're always on the happy path, though.
Well, I got the happy path there too, but I was confused because I'm like, what am I going to do in this country? I don't drink. I don't want prostitutes. Like, what am I going to do? So I'm like, I was in the Philippines for 4 months. And I honestly, I was like totally lost. I didn't know what to do. I went to festivals. All anybody did was drink and get drunk. Everybody was drunk the whole time. And I'm like, okay, 4 days of that. It was okay, but, you're sober. Everybody's like wasted off their ass. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So then I started looking for, and I talked about this in one of the episodes, I started looking for underwater caves. And I started doing free diving, which I didn't have a name for it. But basically diving as deep as I could go in the ocean without any tanks. And then coming back up. So I started free diving because I was just looking for things to do. And the water was 150-foot visibility. So I would just go in the ocean and just dive as far as I can go without dying and come back up. And then I would measure where I went, right? Because I'd get a scuba tank, go down there and measure which rock I was next to on like a rock wall. So I could see, I could dive, at the time I could dive about 34 meters with no tanks and no rocks or anything, like just swim down, which is not easy. That's 100 feet.
My ears hurt just thinking about it.
No, you adjust your ears.
Oh, yeah. I haven't learned that.
No, yeah, that's super easy. Yeah, I'll show you. Yeah, you adjust yours. But so here I am in the country, totally lost. So I think part of reinvention is I stayed true to myself, right? Because I could have started drinking if I wanted to. I could have gone to those prostitutes. I could have done whatever I was doing, but I'm like, I don't want to do that. And there was nothing else to do. Like, it was like the country was just like coconuts. So I climbed coconut trees. I stayed in an island where there was no food. I just climbed coconut trees. You twist them off, by the way. You can't pull them off and you can't cut them very easy because it's too, the tree's swaying everywhere and shit. And then also when you climb a tree, like ants fall on your face and rats. There's always ants and rats up there for some reason. And they like fall out when you start climbing because it starts shaking. You fucking get rains of ants on your head and you got splinters in your hands and feet. And then you get up there and what you do is you twist the coconut. You have to twist it and then twist it long enough and it'll break. Then it goes down as you can get your coconut. So that's what I was doing. I was doing that. And then I was basically swimming like a mile out to sea to fishing boats with money in my hand. And then I would hand them money and they'd give me a bag of fish. I'd swim back with the fish. And then we would cook the fish and with coconuts, right? And then, sometimes we'd cook it. We'd put the fish, cut the coconut with a machete, put the fish inside the coconut, wire it shut, and then throw the whole coconut into a fire. And then it would cook inside the coconut. And it was delicious, by the way. Fish soup in a coconut. It's amazing because it cooks all the coconut into the coconut. So basically I'm doing this. I'm trying to find things to do and swimming down the bottom of the ocean. And then I went to Palawan. And then I thought, okay, what do I want to do now? And then I said, on your point of living with people. So I'm like, there's all these poor people because it was super poor back then. And I just went around town and I said, hey, I want to like live in your house or whatever, buy food or whatever. And this guy was like totally cool. He had 4 daughters. He's like, you can totally live in my house. I'd love to have you over. So I came over and I started buying I bought canned foods and instant coffee, and he was super excited about it.
Yeah, we spoke about that.
Yeah.
No, we one of the last times, I think the last time I was in a recording that we did in the suite was talking about this moment and the turtle guy.
Okay, now I'm going to say from a different perspective though, is what I was actually doing there was I was not looking to bone his daughters. I was not looking to save money, obviously. Philippines, it was like almost free to get a youth hostel or like a place to stay. It was nothing. It was like free to stay in a place. What I wanted to do is I wanted to live with somebody and I wanted to learn a new way of life that I would never learn any other way. And so that's what I did. I lived in his house. He had almost like a teepee. And then the girls would make food. There was a fire inside the house. And so it was like the Indians used to have. They had a fire inside the teepee and the smoke would come out at the top of the teepee. So in our house, which I wouldn't do now because I value my lungs too much, but they were making fires and they would cook. And it was a dirt floor. I lived in a dirt floor for like a month and we cooked inside the house. And then we would go and he couldn't afford rice and I offered to buy rice, but he knew, by then he knew I was curious and I was watching him and he was really enjoying the fact that I was studying from him. Like he was really enjoying the fact that somebody thought what he was doing was valuable or something. So he was showing me how to fish. He was showing me how the Filipinos do this. He was taking me out, introducing me to people. We were learning all kinds of stuff. We were learning he was teaching me basically the Filipino way of life, the real Filipino way of life. And it was amazing for me. It was an amazing opportunity. Very nice guy too. And so anyway, what was the thing I was going to say? Fuck, I totally forgot what I was going to say. He taught me something. Oh God, he taught me something very valuable. Oh, what the fuck was it? Now I'm trying to think of all the things he taught me. What was the angle I was going to say about him? Anyway, the main thing was, yeah, I was going to say, it's quite interesting. So I was going to buy rice because he couldn't afford rice. He never bought rice. And it was expensive because it was on an island, right? You had to get it from another island, right? So back then that was expensive. But he said, no, I want to teach you how we basically do our carbohydrates. So we went and got these things, and I forget what they're called, but they were some kind of
seaweed?
no, like a potato type thing.
Oh.
But they were poisonous. And so then we would get these poisonous potato things, and then we would bury them. We'd go down to the ocean, down in the ocean, and then bury them in the sand, and then kind of mark where it was, right? And then come back like 2 weeks later, and then the salt water would have taken the poison out of the potato thing by then. And so then we would take that and then cook it and mash it up and then eat that. That was what we ate for carbohydrates. So it was kind of interesting because I saw like you can actually eat poisonous food, but it has to go through some process, to make it not poisonous, right? So that's how people ate poisonous foods back in the day. They probably had different methods for somehow, taking enough of the poison out that they could eat it, right? And now thinking back, that's a pretty funny thing to do. But for, I was a college educated dude from America eating these poisonous fucking... But it was like, there was an adventurous spirit I had. I didn't even think about it. Like, to me, this was totally normal. Like, to me, this kind of stuff. But the key thing was back to what you said, was in a sense, he was my mentor. He was my mentor for real life in an island country in Southeast Asia. And that was incredibly valuable for me. I talked about it a little bit with you, and now I'm talking about it. I've never talked about this with anybody. Like, I really learned a lot, but I can't really, whatever I learned, I integrated. So I don't remember what it was. But I learned a lot. Like, I have a confidence in myself, like, to survive. I have a confidence that I could survive. For example, if you just threw me in the forest, like, I'm not saying like some kind of a survival expert or anything, because I'm not. Those Filipinos would never consider themselves survival experts. These are stupid labels. They would just go ahead and make their living, right? I'm confident I could make my living somehow in a new environment, and that's interesting.
So you learned how to move to a new environment, and you learned who to look for. Like, you learned to look for a mentor, and
I guess he was my mentor. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important to know that, like, also having many transitions may require having many mentors. There's different mentors for different things.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was only a mentor for a month, but what a lasting impact he had on me, like a month, but man, it was valuable. Very, very valuable.
And it never ends, like, because even when you yourself are a mentor, like, there's whatever you're going to, and if you're learning and constantly growing, you're going to need people who are older than you and also people who are younger than you. And then, like, learning to find those people is kind of what you did in, like, the Philippines.
Okay. I don't know why I thought of this, but I don't know why I thought of this, but I think that this, whatever thing we're talking about, which only comes when you stay alive and healthy. The only way that you can keep reinventing yourself is if you keep your body young. You gotta that is like a fundamental fucking thing. But, okay, great, I forgot what I was going to say. Go.
Yeah, so, like, you need your health so that you can keep going, obviously, because, like, and if you're going to keep learning and be able to keep learning, like, you only know. And your stories are endless.
Yeah,
your stories are so endless. But and that it, like, really is a good sign of being, like, a successful mentor and learner, because you can only learn if you have these stories. Like, that's what you have to show for it at the end of it. Like, it's real proof and evidence. Like, a good mentor has, like, a lot of stories because they went to a lot of other mentors and had a lot of experiences with learners, and everything is so reliant on health, and your health enables you to learn.
Yeah, I think it enables...
And you got to keep learning, like always. It never ends.
Right. It enables me to stay in the game. That's the main thing. Just basic when it comes to your mental health, emotional health, and your physical health, you have to have a system. And this is actually more and more people are joining.
And moving around, you can't really move around unless you're healthy. Like if there's any obstacle to moving around, it won't happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, you know what? It's interesting because more and more people are joining Unblackmailable for health, like to lose weight or to be healthy. Like more and more people are seeing that is you cannot go anywhere if your engine doesn't work in your car. You know what I mean? If the battery's out of juice, your Tesla's not going anywhere. There's certain things that they're not that valuable in and of themselves, but they allow you to go somewhere. And if you don't have the electricity, you don't have the gas, then you just can't go anywhere, even though you know you want to go and you have the great idea. So your health is that it's not like some big deal. It's just like it's a baseline that you got to have. Otherwise, these other things cannot happen because you can think about them. Like if you see a great investment, but if you don't have any money, you can't buy that investment, right? So you're going to miss that. So health is like that. You got to have the health. And then I thought of what I was going to say, and then I totally forgot it again. So anyway, so I think we actually covered a lot of aspects of this. And I think mentorship is young to old and old to young and reinvention and keeping yourself so that you are still in the game physically, emotionally, and mentally, just so that your wheels will start working. You know what I mean? Your battery still has juice in it. Your car still has gas in it. Oh yeah, I was going to say something interesting on the idea of old learning from young being absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. Sandy Munro, I don't know if any of you guys know him. He's an automotive consultant, and he has a very popular YouTube channel. So Sandy Munro is a car expert, right? He's an absolute expert. And what he does, what he's always done, is he tears down things, and he basically, like you pay him like $1 million, and you bring a Toyota Corolla, brand new one to him. He tears it down to the smallest piece, welds it, cuts it, and he tells you why everything was made the way it was, what compromises they did, what they could have done, what they should have done, or what brilliant move they made in each aspect of materials, design, and everything of cars. So that's what he does. He tears down things, and he's a consultant for other manufacturers who pay him a lot of money because it costs a lot of money for him because he's got these like super smart guys. Like they can look at a Tesla motor and they're trying to figure out before it fell apart, how did the different magnets line up now that they all fell apart? Like he's like can go into the most complex aspects of the latest manufacturing. So anyway, he was doing that and he's always done well. I mean, Sandy Munro, if you were in the automotive industry, you would definitely have known him, right? But anybody outside the automotive industry, like me, I would have never known him. But what happened was his son said, and you can watch his channel. I mean, it's not like he's good looking. It's not like he's a good talker. I mean, I love the guy. I watch all his videos, but not from a speaking perspective or anything. You know what I mean? But what it is about him is that he has intense knowledge, right? And he's able to verbalize it, right? So his son was his mentor on this one. His son says, you got to make a YouTube channel. And he said, like to his son, he's like, get serious. Like, I got shit to do. I just got an order from BMW for $1 million. We have to tear this thing down. Like, what is like YouTube videos were cat videos to him. Like, what the fuck am I going to do with a YouTube channel? He said, Dad, you got to make a YouTube channel. Just start talking. Just start being yourself. Just start doing stuff. Explaining what you're doing. He's like, I'll give away my secrets. And his son's like, well, just give them away. You got more to give. Just give them away. So anyway, he got a video and he's like, he made a video. And then some people watched it. A few people watched it. And then next thing you know, like people started sending it around because it was like in the automotive industry, this was one of the more interesting channels of anybody, right? And so then serious people watched it. And then more people watched it. And then he got an electric car at that time. And then he broke that down. And then his channel like blew up because he was the only guy who could like pull a Tesla apart and say, this is a pile of shit. He's like, look at this. This is wrong. This is stupid. These guys don't know anything about this. And he just tore it apart. So he got the attention of Elon Musk, right? And Elon Musk is like, most people would try to silence him, right? But guys like Elon Musk are like, we need this guy. we need to work with this guy. Even though he's like not a great salesman for us because he's telling us that our cars are shit, like we need this guy to move to the next level. We need this kind of honesty. I need to know my guys are fucking up, and I need to know that we're doing it wrong. And so that's what happened is he got the attention of guys like that. And then the channel just totally fucking blew up, and next thing you know, he got contracts he could never dream of because car companies all over the world started calling Monroe and Associates and just dropping money in his pocket. Opportunities started coming. His channel, he loves it now. You can watch it. It's very interesting. Even if you don't care about automotive, it's still very interesting. In my opinion, it's very interesting. It's always interesting just to watch an intelligent guy do something complex that he can take this complex and explain it simply. He can make you understand something and open your mind to something. It's just so much better than Netflix, at least for me. So anyway, he started making money like crazy. And he's like, how did this come from a YouTube channel? So his son was his mentor. No, I don't think his son really knew how much a big difference is going to make on his dad's life, because what then happened was Aptera, this startup from San Diego, they contacted him, and they have a car that is a solar car, and they can get 46 miles out of that car with nothing, not even plugging it in. And it's a 3-wheel. And Sandy Monroe, because he's an engineer of engineers, he knows the 3 wheels is the most efficient. 4 wheels sucks. 4 wheels is a joke for efficiency. And 2 wheels is dangerous. So 3 wheels is the perfect balance, right? And so every engineer in the past has always dreamed of making a 3-wheel car because he knows 4 wheels is stupid. They flip over and stuff. That was always the problem. But engineering-wise, efficiency-wise, a 3-wheel vehicle is beautiful. It's fucking beautiful. It's genius. There's something about the triangle, the mathematics of it. It's just a perfect fucking thing. And Sandy always wanted a 3-wheel car. He always knew that was the way to go. And Tesla was not listening. Nobody was listening. Tesla listened to him when he said, the mega casting, right? Make everything in one piece. Fuck making 46 pieces and welding, gluing, bolting them together. Just make one fucking piece, like a big Tonka truck. Sandy Monroe's been saying this for years, and nobody listened to him. And Musk is like, we can do that? He's like, yeah, make the car in one piece. One, it'll be easier. You won't need all these robots. Cheaper, faster. And he says, you're going to have to invent a new metal to do it because they shrink when you make one piece, when they heat shrink. And so you're going to have problems there. But if you can make a metal that works with a mega cast, make them like Tonka trucks. So Musk was the only guy listening, and he did it. And now this is the new thing. The new cars are more and more using this mega casting. And it's going to be fully implemented probably in 6 months, where you'll start to see Tesla just destroying everybody because they got rid of 600 robots. Everything's better. Reliability, cost, time, size of the factory, efficiency, weight, price, speed. There is nothing basically negative about it. Basically this was a perfect, this all came from his YouTube channel. This all came from him being open to his son and doing those first few videos when he felt like an idiot. And he changed his life, but he changed my life too, because watching Sandy Monroe in his 60s or 70s, I guess, I don't know, reinvent himself was very, very invigorating for me too, because I love YouTube. I think YouTube is way underrated. I'm very pro YouTube. I have 6 channels. I love YouTube.
Yeah, and YouTube's good because you were able to see this go down, and it connects people between mentorship and, Ellen in many ways, I bet he's a mentor, but he's also a learner, and he found a mentor, and it doesn't even need to be a matter of success. Doesn't really dictate who the mentor is or where the wisdom is. The wisdom determines where the wisdom is, and yet what you're describing is just one of these scenarios.
Yeah. And what was it when Even Elon Musk did not buy his 3-wheeled thing, right? And so Aptura Motors made one, and it's beautiful. And that company is focused purely on engineering. It's all they fucking care about. It's pure, like in engineering, there is a kind of essentially, there's a thing called, it's not called perfection, but it's basically, think of it as perfection. It's like the perfect tool for what you want to do. If you want to fly through space, there's just this perfect cone. There's a perfect, you know what I mean? There's something that just works. Given the laws of physics, you can try to beat the laws of physics, but you can't. So real engineering people, this is something I've always been interested in, is even though I'm not an engineer, I've always known that there is a truth there, like a mathematical truth. And the people that, and I use this in my life too, there is a truth to be found where it's the best way to do something. And once you find that, everything's easy. And everybody else is like fighting against the tide, trying to do the same thing, right? So if you have the perfect design for something, the design for the original Apollo 13 was so perfect that even today they use the same design. Because no matter how many computers you have, you can't beat the laws of physics. Those fucking geniuses that made that cone, like there's just ways to do things that you can't do them any better in this life. Given mathematics and laws of physics, you've reached the peak. That's it. You know what I mean? That's the best thing you can do with that. Now move on to something else and basically perfect that new thing. Find the underlying mathematical truth to those physical forces, right? So that's what you're trying to do with engineering. And Sandy Munro is very much in that way of thinking. And so he wanted this perfection. So he went to the Aptura Motors, and it's going to be very interesting what happens with Aptura. As soon as I saw that, I tried to invest in Aptura. I contacted their company to make a YouTube channel for them, and also to invest in their company. And they had just closed they were so off the ground, or from the ground up, that they had a WeFund page. And I missed it. I missed the fucking chance to invest, because they had a way to get in, like as one of the very first people. And now they're getting now a lot of smart people know about Aptura. So it's like they're getting like gazillion-dollar investments now. And maybe they'll end up being a very big company, very possibly. Or somebody big will buy them or whatever, But it all came from YouTube, It all came from Sandy Munro's genius and perfection, his openness to his son, his willingness to make a channel when he feels like an idiot and he's in his 70s, and probably his wife laughed at him and everybody laughed at him. Like, you're going to make a YouTube channel, Sandy? Like, your skin looks like it looks like your face was on fire and someone put out with a pickaxe, he's not Brad Pitt, you're going to make a YouTube channel, in your 70s or whatever, but he grinded through that, and he did it. And then that led to a lot of opportunities for him, but then it led to me and trying to invest in Aptura, because I already knew who he was, and I knew that guy's a fucking genius. So I was listening to anything he said. So when he said there was a company that he thought had kind of perfected a model of transportation from an engineering perspective, I was like, ooh, because he never says that about Tesla. Tesla's like a battery, and it's a genius company in many ways. But the engineering aspect was like, whoa, I like that. Personally, that really turns me on. So I went straight to Aptura. Unfortunately, I didn't get in there, but so the mentorship can be transferred over the internet. Things can be almost like a seed can blow from, New York to California with the wind, so your mentorship and your lessons and the lessons you learn, as much as everything we talked about until now is true, where living with the guy is important, being in the moment, seeing everything, because the main thing you get when you live with somebody is, one, a lot of people are not very good at verbalizing things, but if you're good at watching people, you'll see genius that the other guy won't even see.
And these things take time.
It takes time. It takes time. And the biggest problem with living with somebody is you find out that most people are frauds. So that's why they don't want to live with you, because they're hiding a lot of shit, because they don't really have that much to offer. Everything is ripped off from somebody else. They don't have the confidence they say. It's not really true about what they say and what they live, the way they live. And so that's one of the biggest problems. Whenever you search for truth, you find that most things are not true. So you have to kind of like get over that part and somehow learn how to keep a positive attitude and keep looking until you find somebody that actually has something of value, right? But that's one important aspect. But I think also, like, I'm now going to another level too, where I'm getting like these seeds that have been blown from the other side of the country, from Sandy Monroe, and then Aptera, and then, it's like, so I think the future is also going to be very much the person to the seed, like the Sandy. The Sandy was more of an idea, that seed that blew to Aptera, right? So it's that there's a very complex dispersion method for these new concepts that can change your life and the way you can change somebody else's life too. There's a very advanced form that's coming out of this that I see. And I want to do this with Ronin Man. I want to be able to, even though you never met me, now I still think, personally, if you like this channel, you're crazy not to come to a summit. You're fucking crazy. Like why the fuck would you not meet people? Like, I don't even get it. But anyway, your aspect, that aspect of living with people and meeting, like, we've got so much out of being together, and I get so much out of it, right? It's like a win-win thing. Like, I learned so much.
Well, I mean, it's a health thing. Like, some people might feel that they're not healthy enough to get started, or healthy enough to sustain themselves in that environment.
That's bullshit. Because
well, you got to take care of it. You have to alleviate
the only way
the prerequisites in order to lay it down and have that togetherness.
Well, the only thing they need. Okay, there's only one thing they need, and that's the honesty. To go to a summit and just say, I'm not doing anything right, and not in a way to put themselves down, but like an honesty. Like, everything's, I'm not doing this. I don't know what to do. Like, I basically, I hope I learned something here,
Yeah, I mean, like anytime you're going on an adventure, like in the Philippines, like there's probably conditions like where the ants are coming down your head or whatever. You got to go out there and be miserable, figure out what you like and don't like and how to mitigate that. Like, you can't really figure out what your needs are until you're in the middle of it. Like, the path doesn't reveal itself until you're on the path.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And when I say summits, I don't mean you. You guys got to understand what I'm talking about. I'm not saying you come to my summit. We go to the summit. Like, I learned so much from the people I met, because I was blown away by, Ryan in La Jolla. His physical training regime was mind-boggling. I'm not saying it would work for many people because he's so disciplined, but I was just amazed. I knew I was looking at physical genius when I saw him. I'm like, this is a one-of-a-kind type of physical specimen here. Like, I was like a sloppy fat guy compared to that guy. Like, and I knew it right when I saw him. There was no pride. I was like, this guy is an absolute gem, a genius when it comes to physical knowledge of his physical body and discipline and exercises. I can't even explain it. There's nobody even like him on the internet. There's like guys like Iceman Hoff and stuff. They do like different things, but I think Ryan should have a physical channel and totally focus on it. But, I think what I saw from Ryan was, I saw that I had not taken my physical training. I was still a fat guy at Starbucks compared to where I wanted to be or where it could be gone. Now, I'm not sure I do want to go to that extreme because I'm not sure it's worth the time for me. Just like we were talking about money before. You can make a lot of money, but it might not be worth it in the sacrifice you make. And But anyway, regardless of whether I do it, it was my honor to see somebody who took physical, I can't even say training, because you won't even understand what I'm talking about. You have to see him doing it. You can't just talk about yoga and understand what Ryan was doing, or outdoor sports. To see somebody who was so in touch with the physical was just amazing to me. And he's the only guy I ever met like that in my whole life, including people on TV and the internet. Like there is nobody like Ryan, like physically, that I've ever met.
Yeah, we went swimming in the ocean, or just me and Ryan. Yeah. We woke up super early one morning, wanted to go swimming in the caves along La Jolla Cove, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm down," and I was like, "Okay, cool." Like I'm excited too. So I thought I was gonna die because the water was so freezing, and we swam for over an hour. And it's the ocean. It's not like a lake. It's not calm or anything.
You guys didn't have a wetsuit or anything?
No, we had wetsuits.
Okay.
But it was still so cold, and my feet were hurting.
Yeah.
Because I was just kicking for so long, and my muscles were getting stiff because how cold it was.
Right.
And I would have never had that experience if I didn't meet this guy. Like of pushing it to the limit and being humbled and realizing what I could do.
Yeah.
If I wanted to be better.
Yeah. No, it's very cool to see brilliance. And you only see that, I think sometimes you need to, one of the aspects, I'll just end on this, but one of the aspects is when your bullshit meter is better in person. No matter how good the internet is, there's a limit. There's so many cues you get from somebody in real life that you don't get when they turn on the video. You know what I mean? And they have an edit function, right? You just don't get that. You don't get that. It's essential to meet people. Still, for today's people, maybe at some day with Neuralink and with computerization of humans, essentially, and connections of humans physically to computers, and that synthesis that will happen, there might be a point where we don't need to meet in person. There might be a point actually in human evolution where we don't need to. Like it will be totally mind connection. But at this point in our evolution, it's important, because if you're going to be serious about something, you want to make sure that you're studying the right thing, and B, that you don't miss any key thing, that the person that you're talking to or watching doesn't have the self-awareness to explain to you, or he doesn't understand your situation well enough to know to tell you, because he just takes it for granted because he does that naturally, right? But if he sees you, he's like, "Oh, you're not doing this," and then you're like, "Oh my God, that's the one thing I'm missing. That's why it never fucking works. It's because of this one fucking blind spot," right? So that's the key. That's one of the keys, right, of going in deep. And I did the same with my girlfriend. I should end on this one. When I started the company, we were like working separately. And I said, "Look, we need to work essentially as one human being. We need to be one person, essentially." Because we had no money. I mean, I had invested the last I had. She had no money. She had one pair of underwear, brown in back, red in front. You know what I mean? She grew up poor. I had run out of money. I'd invested everything. We had used the money for other businesses that lost money. I started a supplement company. I did an import-export company. I had a toy company. I had lost several businesses in a row. And by the way, guys, 9 out of 10 businesses fail. If you don't understand that, and you think that everything that certain people do works, you're totally lying to yourself. They're starting businesses all the time that don't work, and they don't tell you aspects that don't work, So anyway, I had gone through a series of those, and now I was in a state where this was it had to work. And I'm like, we got to make this work. I said, I need Bonnie and Clyde. I need you and me, and we need to be like one person. We hear something, you do the thing you can do, I do the thing I can do, and we just fucking go. We switch roles depending on who's coming, and we able to do fluidly maximize, utilize every strand of fucking DNA that we have to make this business work, right? And that's what we did. And it required living together. So, sometimes I think business, if you're serious about your business partner, I think it's a good idea. I personally think it's a good idea to live together. Because if you look at startups in the past, they usually started like this. Like in the garage. Google started in the garage. Steve Jobs and Wozniak hanging out all the time. I think there's an underrated aspect of this. So one thing that I think younger people do need to realize is that in the old days, people spent more time together. And I think that despite the internet, despite that, there are aspects that you can take the best of the past and actually do much better in the present with those knowledge of that wisdom. And it will give you an insight into the aspect that you were missing. Like you might always pick business partners that you end up having fights with. Well, why are you having fights with them? People say greed and all that. Probably not. It's probably the fact that you never knew that guy that well. You're not making partners with the right people. Like, you better know a guy very well if you're going to partner with him. Like, I tend to know people so well that it's very rare these days that I get fucked over because, I know them well enough, right? So it can still happen. You can be totally fooled by somebody. That can. I'm not saying that there's no insurance against that. But by and large, the deeper you know somebody, the less likely you're going to be surprised by something. And that requires physical time together. You see the way they act in every situation of life, non-business related. You see how honest they are with their parents. You see the way they tell people stories when they're out. You know what I mean? You see the way they really eat. You see the way they really drink. You see the way they are when they're sick. You see the way they are when they're frustrated. You see the way they are when they're busy. And then you really understand, okay, I know what I'm dealing with here. Of course, it's a human being. You're dealing with a human being. But you actually understand that human being pretty well. You can almost predict, okay, this person's going to do this type of thing. And I think you gain a lot more than just a good business partner because you start to get a better insight into other people. And your bullshit meter, every time you learn another person at a deep level, you can learn the next person faster, and then your bullshit meter goes up faster. You know what I mean? You can almost spot it pretty fast. Anyway, whether you're going to get perfect or not, training makes you stronger. And training your brain in this aspect definitely makes you better. Doesn't make you perfect. Doesn't make you Superman. Doesn't make you rich, but it does make you better. And in the end, just like Sandy Monroe, one little better aspect could be the thing that changes your life. Because Sandy Monroe's life from today on is going to be so different than what it would have been. So different. He would be an aging guy that built a company, eating crab dinners. And instead, he's like in the middle of the EV revolution as a major investor in one of the hottest companies and friends with people like Elon Musk and engineers that know this new technology, not the cobalt, right? He's with these people that all the young people he works with, like these are the guys who are like going to the future, and they're mentoring him and he's mentoring them, and he's like catapulted him himself. So when you run into like things that don't work, dead ends, difficult things, just remember it just takes that one thing. It's that one thing you're looking for that's going to just somehow get you into that wormhole. You're going to naturally try a lot of things that don't work, but you don't need that many. Like I had one of my say early 20s when I went overseas, traveled the world, my 30s when I got into business, my 40s when I reinvented myself in China as a guy who could not only own different kinds of companies, manage more people, but I could actually network in business and manage things, not just do it myself. I really was able to move up a level, almost like what most people get when they, get an MBA or go to a better, I got up to another class of people. I knew the other one. I'm always on the bottom. That's why people like me. Like that's why I'm always such a great investigator for businesses in China, is because I could make friends with the guard. I'll smoke cigarettes with him, even though I don't smoke. And then he'll tell me all these secrets. And I'll be like, okay, I got this company's problem. The manager's stealing. At night he comes in with the fucking trucks and robs the place. And I was able to do that because I've always stayed at the bottom. I've always related to guys on the very bottom. A poor guy in the Philippines, a guy who's nobody listens to him. He's a guard man. He's garbage in China. And I take him very seriously. I'm not milking him to take anything from him. I'm just listening to him. And I'm respecting him. I'm like, well, now that you told me this, what should I do with it? And he's like, well, don't get me in trouble. I'm like, well, do you want me to use it? He's like, yeah. I hate watching that guy rip the company off. I'm like, okay, I'll come up with a solution that will protect you, but somehow we can solve this problem, right? So I was able to take my trailer park kind of attitude along with the corporate thing and integrate those. So that was incredibly valuable. So you don't like become a new person, or you don't change, but you just constantly grow and improve, and like some robot that just adds on new things all the time, or some game where you keep picking up these new tools that have energy points, or new lives and stuff. You're just constantly going through and like beep, and then you go up to the next level. You're just doing that with your own, not just your career, because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more like your journey through life, really. Your journey. All right, guys, that's it. That's aging. I hope that's my take on aging. I hope that's been valuable. I've gave you some insights into maybe an aspect that you maybe hadn't thought about. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was a real journey, and it needs time to explain. It so does.
Time. Yeah. Aging. All right, we'll end on that. Thanks, guys.